Good morning, this is your AI host, Jay. I'm here with the automatically generated, Journato, morning headlines on November 30, 2022. Afghanistan, parks become latest no-go areas for women in Kabul. Tire extinguishers deflate tires of 900 SUVs in biggest ever action. The Guardian, tires of 900 SUVs deflated in biggest ever action by tire extinguishers. Idaho College murders, live, police call logs show reports of suspicious men as 5 vehicles examined. This feels so much like Hong Kong, territory's solidarity with Chinese uprising. The Guardian, watch again, China Foreign Ministry holds news conference on COVID-related protests. The Independent, Hong Kong sees protests in solidarity with mainland. CNN, live, Hong Kong students join latest protest against China's COVID restrictions. The Independent, watch again, Hong Kong students join latest protest against China's COVID restrictions. French regulator called on to withdraw license allowing CGTN to broadcast from London. Big polluters given almost €100 billion in free carbon permits by EU. Suitcase murder suspect due before NZ court. BBC, woman extradited to New Zealand over bodies of children found in suitcases. The Times, New Zealand, suitcase, murders, South Korea hands over 42-year-old suspect. The Guardian, bodies in suitcases suspect appears in New Zealand court. The Independent, South Korea extradites suspect in suitcase murder case to New Zealand. China protests paused as police flood streets and temperatures drop below freezing. Sky News, Foreign Office Minister summons Chinese ambassador over journalist arrest. The Independent, China COVID protests, UK summons ambassador over journalist arrest. BBC.co.uk, UK summons Chinese ambassador to Foreign Office over police beating of BBC journalist in Shanghai. Evening Standard, UK summons Chinese ambassador over completely unacceptable arrest of BBC reporter. Ukrainian refugees and hosts petition UK government for housing support. The Guardian, thousands of homes for Ukraine hosts urge Rishi Sunak to increase refugee support. Politics Home, new search for more Scots to take in refugees from Ukraine, Herald Scotland. Herald Scotland, Ukrainian family left in West Lothian caravan after broken promises when fleeing to Scotland. STV News, North Lanarkshire's £5 million resettlement fund is helping refugees who fled war zone. China's zero COVID policy explained in 30 seconds. The Guardian, companies will find it hard to diversify away from China COVID shock. Financial Times, lockdown criticism, China shows how not to handle a pandemic. The Telegraph, China's COVID crisis demands terrible choices. The world will suffer if this goes wrong. The Guardian, opinion, how China lost the COVID war. Janusz Walus stabbed in South African prison. BBC, killer of South African anti-apartheid leader Chris Hani stabbed in jail. The Guardian, killer of African anti-apartheid hero Hani stabbed in jail, prison. France 24 English, Janusz Walus parole, vilifying Chief Justice, Concourt. Daily Maverick, killer of South African anti-apartheid leader stabbed in prison. China plans crackdown after COVID protests. BBC, on Chinese social media, America is being blamed for the recent protests. Sky News, China vows crackdown on hostile forces as public tests Xi. The Independent, social media is a wreck. Protesters are rising above it. Bloomberg, how China's COVID protests are being silenced. SHENZHOU 15, China sends new crew to Tiangong space station. BBC, China launches 3 astronauts to Tiangong space station. Al Jazeera English, China launches 3 astronauts to complete space station. The Independent, China sends 3 astronauts to its Tiangong space station. CBS News, Chinese astronauts board space station in historic mission. Ukraine-Russia News, live, MPs urged to keep world awake to war as First Lady visits. The Independent, First Lady of Ukraine Olena Zelenska live news, Russia-Ukraine war updates live, English news live. CNN News 18, watch, Ukraine's First Lady Olena Zelenska gives speech to MPs. The Telegraph, Ukraine, Zelensky tells MPs that UK must unite the world. BBC.co.uk, Olena Zelenska tells UK Parliament victory is not the only thing we need. We need justice. Blank paper, equations and alpacas, the symbols of China's zero COVID protests. The Guardian, Chinese police clamp down after days of COVID protests, BBC News. BBC News, COVID protests escalate in Guangzhou as China lockdown anger boils. EURACTIV, China's Xi Jinping should heed COVID-0 protests. Bloomberg, opinion, amid protests, Xi should admit that China's COVID policy has failed. This was all for the news. Thanks for listening. Please do not forget to like and subscribe.